I've spent about 2 years of my university life in fitness education. And out of those years, 3 were spent deep inside a PhD in muscle physiology research. Now, let me be honest with you for a second. When you're doing a PhD, a huge part of your job isn't experiments or writing papers. It's about managing and organizing papers, keeping track of what matters and what doesn't. If you can actually stay on top of your research papers, if you don't lose key ideas, forget important sources, or drown in PDFs, then honestly, you're already playing at a PhD genius level. And when I was doing my PhD, I didn't have AI. No smart tools, no shortcuts, just folders, stress, and way too many tabs open. In this video, I want to show you how I would do things differently today, how to manage research papers, how to organize them properly, and how to read and understand complex papers fast, the way a PhD genius would using AI. Because a PhD genius in paper management isn't someone who works harder. It's someone who never loses track of important papers or ideas. Someone who can connect insights across dozens of sources, spot patterns and gaps quickly, spend less time on boring admin work, and more time actually thinking, understanding, and creating. And most importantly, someone who avoids burnout. That's exactly what I'm going to show you today using Anara AI. Anara is honestly my secret weapon. It helps me understand papers, books, and even audio content much faster. It lets me organize everything in one place, write properly cited documents without losing my mind, and ask questions directly to my own research so I can find answers in seconds. If research papers feel overwhelming right now, this video is for you. When Anara released the table view, it honestly changed the way I think about managing research. Table view works like a command center for your entire library. Instead of your papers and notes being scattered everywhere, everything shows up in one clean spreadsheet style view. You can see all the content you've saved at a glance, organize it in a way that actually makes sense to your brain, and move through your research without feeling lost. You can sort papers by topic, filter by relevance, and quickly rediscover ideas you might have forgotten. And this matters because one of the biggest problems with most AI tools today is that they give you information fast, but they leave you with a messy pile afterward. You get answers, summaries, and insights, but no real structure. Over time, that chaos slows you down. With Anara, you're forced, in a good way, to build a clear system, just like you would during a PhD. It encourages you to think intentionally about how your research is organized. So when you come back weeks later, everything is still easy to find. That kind of structure doesn't just save time. It protects your focus, your energy, and your ability to actually think deeply instead of constantly searching for lost information. Strategies can completely change how you handle research papers. And the first one is honestly the most important. If you get this right, everything else becomes easier. Strategy number 1 is all about grouping your papers in a smart way. Instead of treating every paper as a separate file, you organize them by themes, projects, topics, or even by a specific research question you're working on. When you do this, you stop wasting time digging through endless PDFs later. You already know exactly where things live, and you can pull the right information almost instantly when you need it. This is how people who look naturally organized actually work. They don't rely on memory, they rely on systems. This is where Anara really shines. When you first open your personal Anara dashboard, you immediately see how flexible it is. You can upload single files, entire folders, or even bring in citations directly from tools like Zotero. You can also import a website or a URL, create notes, upload recordings, and if you ever want to go deeper, there's extra information available through their blog. For this example, I uploaded 12 research papers at once, which is a pretty realistic number if you're working on a serious topic. Once everything is uploaded, you can switch to a full table view instead of the split view. This is where things start to feel powerful. You can see the paper titles, authors, when each paper was added, when you last viewed it, the file type, and even a summary for each one. At a glance, you already understand what your library contains. That alone saves an incredible amount of mental energy. From there, I created a folder specifically for my introduction section and added 5 key papers that I knew I wanted to reference. I named it something simple and clear like Quadriceps femoris intro. Now, everything related to that part of my writing lives in one place. When I ask questions or search for information, I can limit those questions to just this folder. That means the answers I get are focused, relevant, and not polluted by unrelated papers. This kind of separation is what keeps you from feeling overwhelmed. Once I open a specific paper, Anara lets me start asking questions right away. It even suggests questions that are surprisingly useful and well-matched to the content of the paper. I can also open a note and write down my own thoughts or quickly review structured details about the paper itself. When I click into the deeper information, I can see summaries and metadata. But one of the most underrated features is the related research section. Here, Anara shows me which papers cited this one, which papers this one cited, related papers already in my library, and even related work pulled from the internet. This is incredibly powerful for building connections and understanding the wider research landscape. You're no longer working in isolation. You're seeing how ideas connect. On top of that, I can add annotations directly inside the paper, marking specific paragraphs as important or useful. Over time, this turns your library into a living system that actually works for you, instead of a digital graveyard of forgotten PDFs. Genius strategy number 2 is all about recall. And this is a big one, especially once your paper collection starts growing out of control. At this stage, you're no longer just reading papers one by one. You're trying to remember key arguments, compare ideas across multiple sources, and pull out very specific data points when you need them. Traditionally, this means reopening PDFs, searching for keywords, rereading sections, and wasting hours just to find one sentence you vaguely remember. That's the part of research that drains your energy fast. What you actually want is the ability to synthesize information on demand without having to go back and read everything all over again. This is where Anara completely changes the game. Using its retrieval tools, you can ask direct questions and get clear answers pulled only from the papers you've uploaded. In the example here, I'm asking a question to better understand a specific research paper and to see whether there are any gaps in the literature that are worth exploring further. What's powerful is how fast this happens. In seconds, Anara pulls out relevant points directly from that paper alone. It's not guessing. It's not mixing in information from random sources online. Everything it shows comes from the document I gave it, and that matters a lot if you care about accuracy and trust. Even better, Anara shows you exactly where each idea comes from inside the paper. You can see the precise section or line where that information appears. This makes it incredibly easy to verify claims, back up your understanding, and build real confidence in what you're learning. Instead of wondering whether something is correct, you know where it came from. That alone saves weeks of time over the course of a project. Once I have those insights, I can immediately turn them into notes, add them to my research database, or save them for later writing. Nothing gets lost, and nothing stays vague. One of the most powerful features, though, is asking questions across a group of papers. Instead of searching one document at a time, you can ask a single question and have Anara scan an entire collection. In this case, I'm asking about gaps in the literature across a set of papers focused on the same topic. This is incredibly useful when you're trying to form a research question, shape a proposal, or find a meaningful angle that hasn't been fully explored yet. What used to take days of reading and note-taking now takes seconds, and you can immediately save those insights for later use. I also like asking broader questions, especially when I'm new to a topic. For example, I might ask, what interesting or important things a new researcher should know about this area? Anara gives me a clear summary with several key points that help me understand the landscape much faster. This has completely changed how I start my research. Instead of feeling lost or overwhelmed, I feel oriented, focused, and confident. And that shift alone makes research not just faster, but actually enjoyable again. Genius strategy number 3 is where everything really starts to come together, because this is about building a system that can actually grow with you. Your research setup should never feel fixed or locked in. As your understanding changes, as you read more papers, and as new ideas enter your world, your system needs to adapt right along with you. Research is not static, so the way you organize it should not be static either. This is something most people struggle with, and it's also where a lot of wasted time and frustration come from. This is where Anara really shines, especially with the introduction of the table view. Instead of seeing your papers as a messy list or endless folders, you suddenly get a clear, structured overview of everything you have. You can see the title, the authors, when you last looked at the paper, the file type, and even any chats or questions you've had about that document. At a glance, you know exactly what's in your library and how it connects to your thinking so far. That alone removes a huge mental load. What makes this even more powerful is that the system is completely customizable. You're not forced to look at information you don't care about. If a column isn't useful to you anymore, you can simply remove it. For example, maybe you don't care when a paper was last opened, or you don't need to see old chat history. Maybe what really matters right now is the paper's title, the author, and a clear summary. You can shape the view to match exactly what you need at that moment. And that flexibility is a big deal. This kind of setup allows your research system to evolve alongside your work. At one stage, you might care deeply about summaries. At another stage, you might focus more on methods or results. The system adapts to your current priorities instead of forcing you to adapt to it. That's how real productivity happens in research. On top of that, Anara lets you search across your entire library at once. From the main desktop view, you can ask a question about all your papers combined. This is incredibly helpful when your library grows large and manual searching becomes impossible. Instead of opening files one by one and hoping you remember where something was mentioned, you can simply ask a question and get a clear answer. In my case, I asked whether any of my papers discuss a specific topic. I have a large collection, so doing this manually would have taken a long time. But instantly, Anara showed me the exact papers that covered that topic. Even better, it didn't just list them. It highlighted which paper mattered the most and presented everything cleanly in a table. That kind of clarity saves hours. At the end of the day, finding research papers is not the hardest part of academic work. The real challenge is organizing them, retrieving the right information later, and actually using what you've read. Being able to see all your data in one clean, flexible system makes a massive difference. That's why this feature adds such a strong advantage when using Anara for reading, research, and long-term thinking. Goodbye. I really hope this video helped you, because one of the questions I get more than anything else is this: how do I actually organize my research papers in a way that makes sense? How do I take all this information I've collected over months or even years and store it so I can actually find it later when I really need it? Most people don't struggle with finding papers anymore. They struggle with managing the chaos that comes after. Hundreds of PDFs, half-remembered ideas, important insights buried somewhere you can't quite recall. That's exhausting, and it slows your thinking down more than it should. What you've seen in this video is a real step forward in how research can be handled today. This is what it looks like when AI is used the right way, not to replace your thinking, but to support it. Tools like Anara don't do the work for you, but they remove the friction. They help you organize faster, retrieve information more easily, and spend your energy on understanding, connecting ideas, and actually doing meaningful work instead of drowning in admin tasks. If this is something you want to try for yourself, I've left a link below so you can check out Anara and see how it fits into your own research workflow. And if you found this video useful, I really recommend watching another video on the channel where I go deeper into reading papers faster and actually understanding what you read, not just skimming it. That's where everything really clicks together. Thanks so much for spending this time with me. I genuinely hope this helps make your research life a little lighter and a lot more focused. I'll see you in the next video.